The Dodgers have a serious problem that they must fix this weekend if they hope to advance to the World Series. This has to be fixed. Hey, this is Mike Nelson of Dodgers Digest. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. I want to thank the almost 12% of the ones that are watching these videos. We're getting now thousands of you. I want to thank everybody for the support and the 12% who have subscribed. But 88% of you have not hit the subscribe button yet. Make sure you subscribe. You don't want to miss out. Myself and Brad J are bringing you everyday Dodger videos in the morning, after the games, and in the offseason. We're going to be bringing you the latest news from this team. And hopefully, one win away from the World Series still. We're going to be bringing you all that insight going into that World Series that we all are hoping the Dodgers can make. So make sure to subscribe. Let's get right into it. Of course, the Dodgers lose today 12-6. But, got to keep our heads up. The Dodgers are still ahead in this series 3-2. Can't forget that. The Dodgers were up 3-1 going into this game, and they're still up 3-2, and that's the most important thing. Of course, the Mets had to win had to win to stay alive. This was a must-win for them playing at home. And the Dodgers, of course, did squander an opportunity to advance to the World Series today. It's just simply put, they squandered a huge opportunity. And this is, thanks to, once again, bad starting pitching. Jack Flaherty just was not good enough tonight. Only lasted 3 innings. Gave up, of course, as we know, 8 runs, putting the Dodgers in a hole that they really, couldn't get out of the rest of this game. Didn't strike out one batter today, not even one batter, and walked 4 batters. And yeah, it was just not good enough from Jack Flaherty. Like I've talked about before, Jack Flaherty has not shown he's been consistent in his Major League Baseball career. This is the first time that Jack Flaherty has been tasked with the idea that he is an ace pitcher of the team, because that's one of the aces, right? Because Yamamoto is currently the ace of the Dodgers, right? He was given the ball in Game 1 of the NLDS, and of course had to pitch in Game 5 as well. And pitched yesterday as well. So he's technically the ace, but Jack Flaherty's got to be the ace 1B, or there's 1A and 1C, right? Because that's kind of where the Dodgers are in terms of starting pitching. And Jack Flaherty wasn't supposed to be that, because you had Tyler Glasnow on this roster, you had Gavin Stone, you had a couple guys that were probably going to be ahead of Jack Flaherty in the playoff rotation. Let's be honest. If the Dodgers had Gavin Stone and Tyler Glasnow, I think they would be ahead of Jack Flaherty on the playoff rotation. Comment below if you think otherwise. But the Dodgers would probably have Yamamoto, Glasnow, and Stone. Yes, the young pitcher Gavin Stone would be in the top 3 of the rotation because he just pitched so good this year. He was one of the best pitchers for the Dodgers all year long. And now he's out for the playoffs and will be out next year as well. So it's a huge loss because the guy was very consistent for the Dodgers. He kind of did tail a bit toward the end before the injury, but he was consistent, for majority of the part of the year. But today, it's about Jack Flaherty, right? Jack Flaherty, his velocity was down, like Ken Rosenthal on the Fox broadcast pointed out today, was down a couple miles, and that's, of course, has to be due to pitching on 4 days rest. I mean, the guy, Jack Flaherty, just pitched on Sunday in Game 1 of the NLCS. Of course, today is Game 5. Today was Game 5, and it was on short rest. These guys are not used to pitching on 4 days rest at this point in the way Major League Baseball is set up, and it showed today. It just wasn't good enough for Jack Flaherty. You had hoped that Jack Flaherty would pitch better because he had one of the best games of his career on Sunday, right? I mean, the guy was didn't throw a perfect game, but come on, 7 innings of shutout baseball, that's incredible. That was absolutely an incredible performance from Jack Flaherty in Game 1 of this series, and for him to turn around and have the kind of game that he had today is very disappointing. It's very disappointing to say the least, as a Dodger fan. Because you hope for better. You hope that things would look different tonight from Jack Flaherty, and they didn't. Right from the beginning. Giving up a 3-run homer in the first inning. So it was an uphill battle, and basically every inning that he pitched, in the 3 innings that he pitched, it was an uphill battle. The Mets were on him. They of course were focused. They wanted to win today. It seemed. Well, of course they had to win, right? There was no tomorrow for these guys, and unfortunately, as a Dodgers fan, you have to be worried. I'm worried myself because this is a serious problem that has to be fixed, right? The Dodgers have lost now 4 games in these playoffs, and in all 4 of those losses, they had bad pitching in the first few innings, in all of them. Think about it. In the 2 losses against San Diego, not good starts, from Jack Flaherty, and that was a big one, Jack Flaherty, and then Game 3, Walker Buehler, didn't have a terrible start, but the defense behind him was not very good, and Buehler, quite frankly, probably would say he wasn't his best that night, right? So those 2 losses, Flaherty and Buehler, kind of put the Dodgers, behind it in the NLDS. And now this series, Landon Knack, who didn't start the game, but in the second inning had a rough start, had a rough inning, that put the Dodgers behind early. And now tonight in Game 5. So basically, the Dodgers, the way to beat this team, it seems like, is to take an early lead, to jump on them early, score a bunch of runs, because the Dodgers, it's tough, right? When you're down that much, the Dodgers were trailing in this game 10-2. They kind of made it a game, right? Andy Pajes hit a 3-run shot to make it 10-5, kind of making it a game. Mookie Betts hit a homer, right, getting the 6th run, but it was tough, right? It's tough to come back, especially in the playoffs when you give up those amount of runs. Now, there was, of course, some positives with today's game I wanted to point out, and that's the bullpen because, yeah, Honeywell wasn't the best today, but he did pitch 4 innings, and they only used Anthony Banda for a bit. So that's good because the Dodgers didn't really exert anything out of the bullpen in this blowout loss because they're going to need that bullpen in the next game. I mean, it's setting up to be a bullpen start for the Dodgers in Game 6. And, luckily they didn't have to use Blake Trinan tonight. That's a big one. And, didn't have to use Michael Kopech. And, didn't use Evan Phillips. These guys are going to be part of the mission of the Dodgers, of the team effort that is going to be on Sunday night at Dodger Stadium in that bullpen start. Ryan Brazier, all these guys are going to have to step up, just like they did in Game 4 of the NLDS. When the Dodgers were facing elimination in San Diego, it's gonna take a similar performance again. Now, there's obviously vast differences between that moment and Sunday's moment, and I want to talk to you about that because in that moment, the Dodgers were trailing in the series, having with their backs against the wall, knowing they had to win 2 games to advance the NLCS. So there was a lot more pressure, I think, on the Dodgers in that series to perform, and they were on the road. The Dodgers are going to be at home this weekend. They have Sunday to win, hopefully, to avoid a Game 7 Monday, which is, I think, everybody on the Dodgers wants to avoid, a Game 7 for various reasons. And it's much different, right? I think it's a different situation, and what gives Dodger fans, or gives the Dodgers themselves, I think, confidence going into Sunday's game is the offense, right? The Mets have had basically no answer outside of Game 2. And even Game 2, the Dodgers put some rallies on. Basically, in all 5 of these games, the Dodgers' offense has been clicking. In all of them. All 5 of these ball games. The Dodgers' offense has had moments, and they've been clicking. And tonight, once again, put up 6 runs in a losing effort. But the Mets' pitching has had no answer for these guys. Think about it. In the first inning, the Dodgers had 2nd and 3rd with nobody out, already out of the get-go. So the Dodgers didn't score, of course, but they were already putting pressure on the Mets pitching right away. So that's, if you're a Mets fan, you have to be concerned with that, right? Because the Dodgers offense continues to get hits. They continue to get on base. They continue to walk at record numbers in this NLCS. The Mets pitching can't throw a strike to save their lives at sometimes. No control. Ohtani's getting on base now. There's a lot of positives. Mookie Betts continues to swing the bat very well. Look at Andy Pajes. Had a great game tonight, batting ninth. And come on, the number 9 hitter for the Mets, we started out the day 3 for 3, 4 for 4, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, this was one of his best games of his career. I just don't forecast that happening again. And yeah, am I worried? Yes, I'm worried, but the Dodgers should get it done Sunday, right? Even with the bullpen start, the offense is just too good this year. And the Mets pitching just hasn't had much of an answer for the Dodgers offense. And, had they shut the Dodgers out tonight, then I think you would be more worried. Now, Sunday is it's a key, right? I mean, Mets have to win to force Game 7. The Dodgers might have to win this series, right? Because Game 7, this gets to 7 games. You have to bring out Walker Buehler, look very good against the Mets, but how confident are you with Walker Buehler in Game 7? And then another thing, you're wasting him in this series again. Potentially, he's only going to, pitch once now in the World Series. It just really puts you in a tough situation. The Dodgers just don't have enough pitching, really, to do this. They're luckily going to have some time off now before the World Series, right? The World Series will be starting next Friday if they make it, guaranteed. Even if they win on Sunday, or if the Yankees, of course, win tonight and win tomorrow, the World Series will be starting next Friday now due to the Dodgers losing today. So that's a bit of a positive. I think starting on Tuesday would have been a bit of a challenge, right? Because you would have only 3 days to prepare. Bit of a challenge for both teams, right? The Yankees would have had only 2 days. So in a way, there's some positives, but you got to try to win Sunday, avoid a Game 7, and that's all you can hope for as a Dodger fan. The bats are going to come through. I don't forecast the offense getting shut down by this Mets team. I don't know about the Yankees, but this Mets team, they don't have an answer for these batters on the Dodgers. They just don't. Make sure to subscribe, and as always, let's go Dodgers.